Hi, hello, my name's Ollie Bliss and this is my channel Book Drawer. For those who don't know, I enjoy looking at queer fiction and I create little images out of it. Today I am doing the last part of my The Well of Loneliness, which is by Radcliffe Hall, and I'm concentrating on a scene where Stephen Gordon, the lead character, who is loosely based on Radcliffe Hall's actual character and life, but because it was based in the 1920s, it's all kind of done in secret. This scene is very special in terms of a very poignant moment in Stephen's life as she's growing up. She's just recently lost her father, who got crushed by a falling tree, Sir Philip, and she's fallen out with her mother. Her mother and her have never had the best relationship, but it's come to a head because basically a letter was written to her outing her for having this kind of love interest, and the mum freaks out and says like how she always knew that she never wanted to hold her or be with her, and she thought something was wrong with her, but she realised it was something that was wrong with Stephen. So Stephen goes off and hides in the library and starts looking through some of her father's books and comes across this particular book by Kraft Ebing. It's an old and battered one. According to Wiki, it's referencing Psychopathia Sexualis and Paraphilias or something like that. I'm probably saying that completely wrong, but I'll add a link in the description below. But it's basically describing sexual inversion, which is something which clicks in Stephen's head, because previously she knew that she enjoyed having her hair cropped back, dressing in more masculine clothing, doing things like fencing, and more traditionally like masculine based activities of its time, and it's this realization that her father had this secret knowledge and understanding, but also acceptance of who Stephen was, and that's something that she hadn't even fully realised in herself. And although the mother has literally just gone, "You're unnatural and I don't want anything to do with you," clearly the father had different insight to this, was protecting his wife about it, but was also like protecting Stephen in his mind and in his eyes, and she experiences this incredible loss that why didn't her father ever talk to her or confront her about it? And there's something incredibly beautiful and challenging and damaging in that whole sequence of events, and she's just left realising that she has to leave Morton because she can no longer have a relationship with her mother. And another part that comes out of this conversation, which isn't fully really explored within the book, but I think it is a demonstration of the difference in class at the time. So Mrs. Puddleton is the family servant, has been looking after Stephen for a long time, is quite like a quiet character throughout the book really, but this is the kind of key moment when she speaks up. And she says, all that you're suffering in this moment, I've suffered. I basically know what you're going through, which illuminates the fact that she's had certain like similar feelings to Stephen, but has either suppressed them or ignored them and not acted on them. Whereas Stephen, being in a privileged position, is able to live independently to a degree, and they make the decision to go to Caen together. But what's also interesting is that Mrs. Puddleton is firstly referred to as Puddle. Stephen takes little interest in her feelings or her backstory or anything, and just kind of assumes that she will be cared for as always as the family servant. Stephen doesn't acknowledge Puddle as an equal, and she can't, because there's a class difference between each other, and she can't even really see that she may have suffered in the same way as she did. She doesn't really consider that she feels as a person, which I thought was really quite like unsettling and uncomfortable in a way. Anyway, you are probably wondering why I am showing you a series of these images. What does this water fountain and this cart and now this hillside have in relationship to this scene of Stephen looking out the window? I'm drawing in references from what happens before and afterwards. So the hillsides are actually direct images from the Malverns. The ambulance car is because she meets her love interest Mary, having been a part of the Great War at the time and riding out and saving the heroes from the war, and that's her role within that. The fountain is a reference to her feelings towards Mary herself. Mary is described as the fountain of life for her, and she represents this feeling of happiness and vitality through her love for Mary, and it fulfills her. But ultimately it leads into this well of loneliness. And in a little bit you'll see some images of some 1920s faces of different women who got into the opium scene, and cropped their faces because they're looking dazed and out of it, but also because their hair and style and everything is of that era, and that's because those women to me represent women who are lost or alone in some way. And the tragedy of the end of the story is really quite bleak. I won't go too far into it, I don't want to spoil it too much for people, but there's this barren emptiness of a legion of women who have been left by God and are kind of like excluded from God in some way. And in Radcliffe Hall it appears to be battling with this understanding that there is this beauty and grandeur, but for whatever reason they have been abandoned and they are left alone in this well of loneliness. And that's really quite difficult, especially at that time. It must have felt that way, and it is a battle, and the battle is referred to again and again in terms of them having to fight for their right to exist, and Winx and Ink really breaks that down beautifully, so I'll add a link below. I've also included the use of the redwood trees at the which in the background, and that's a nod to how the Canadian woods give Stephen a sense of the existence of God. And that's also why I've got the swan there to reflect her solitude, and when she's heartbroken for the first time she cries these tears, and it's like tears of blood. Anyway, this is probably enough from me for today. I will be coming back with some tag videos over the Christmas period, and then I will be back with more reviews. I hope this review and image has inspired you and makes you want to go out and read The Well of Polonius, because it really is a fantastic read. Feel free to click subscribe and the like button, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Okay, take care. Bye.